morning, Jericha.
Oh, good morning, Joan. Hello, good morning. Hello, everyone. Good morning out there.
Yes, indeed. Good morning. Good morning. How are you today?
I am extremely well, thank you. I've just, apologies, wet hair. I've just been for a swim.
Is this in the river?
Yes, there's a river at the bottom. I mean, I live in London, but there's a river that runs through the bottom. It's part of the Regent's Canal, actually. And I dunk in there every other day, have a quick dunk and a swim up and down and just avoid all the craft, which are increasingly large in numbers, unfortunately.
And of course you get all these stag parties that sort of defecate over the side of the boats.
Indeed, you get all sorts of fluids and bits and bobs floating around, which broadly speaking you just swim around. I've got a mask that I wear. It's actually a full head a piece of equipment that filters out all those bits and bobs. But yes, it's an increasing problem, unfortunately.
Yes, indeed.
And how about you? What have you been up to?
Well, I've just come back from popping my dear old mum into a home.
Oh, what, Joan?
Yes, Joan Senior. She's over 100 now, so
yes.
Obviously she's done very, very well.
Well, she has, marvellous.
But yes, we've reached that point where we're torn between whether to sort of help her on her way, as it were,
yes.
Yes. Or to let nature take its course.
Indeed.
But we've had lots of discussions about once she does go, whether she wants a cremation or a burial, or the new fad, which she's quite keen on, which is to be exploded.
Oh, yes. Right, I've not heard about
this.
Yes. Oh, that sounds exciting.
Yes, I suppose it's for those of us who are a little bit more attention-seeking.
Flamboyant.
Yes, exactly. She's a failed actress, but she's always been trying to get attention.
Yes, I remember she did some bits and bobs in Crossroads, didn't she?
Yes, she did. She wasn't asked to do them.
But, oh dear, poor Joan Senior.
Yes.
So, and she's heavily medicated, or...?
She is, but yes, this new thing is, I think it originates in Russia. It's not a bomb or anything. You just have the body sort of exploded in front of the relative,
like a sort of controlled explosion.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that would make sense, wouldn't it? Oh, wonderful.
Yes.
So do you think she'll go for that, or?
She seems keen, although it's hard to understand some of what she's saying. She mostly communicates with drawings now.
Right, okay.
So those are open to misinterpretation.
Indeed, yes. Oh, yes, I see.
Yeah, my husband says he's not sure what she's saying, but yes.
But he's not sure of much anyway, is he?
No, he's still not really on the mend. So,
gosh, you're really going through it, Joan, aren't you?
Yes. So nice to get away. So I'm going off to Tahiti.
Oh, wonderful.
For a couple of weeks.
Yes, I wondered why you had those suitcases with you.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, I need a break.
You really do.
Need a bit of me time.
Definitely. Yeah, it's just a bit of recovery time and a gathering of the self and the soul, which we all need.
Oh, absolutely. The soul can get very scattered.
Indeed, absolutely. Exploded, indeed.
Yes.
Rather like your mother's corpse in due course.
Yes.
Okay. Shall we move to some letters?
Yes. Dear Joan and Jericha, I have 3 moles on my upper lip. Should I be concerned?
Yes.
Amy Dearman from Wiltshire.
Oh dear, yes, absolutely. Yes, I wouldn't waste any time. I'd pop down to A&E and get those checked. Are they bleeding? Are they scabby? Are they irregularly shaped?
Well, I think all of those and more. In her letter, she's sent a photo of what they were like when she was younger, which is essentially a sort of moustache of moles.
Right, yes, but normal shaped moles.
Normal shaped, but quite unsightly. I mean, I would have thought her mother would have had them removed aesthetically. However, she's chosen not to do that. And of course, the consequence is they're now very misshapen.
Yes.
Scabby.
Yes.
And the third one there on that upper lip there is big.
That's a tumour, really, isn't it? I mean, what's concerning me looking at these, and this is for anybody else listening with moles or any little bits and bobs on their body that have either grown or changed. If you look at a normal mole, you will see just a regular circular shape. What I'm very, very concerned about with Amy's picture that she sent in is that she's got these larger circles, but what's really worrying me is you've got these sort of extended, almost phallic shapes that are coming out from the side. So you've got 1 or 2 that are bulging outside that central circle. And that's what's really raising alarm bells for me.
I mean, when you say phallic, could they be little penises. Only that I know there's been all these bizarre cases where, there was a case of a woman who grew up, had terrible chest pains.
Right.
And it turned out that within her lung was her twin sister.
Well, that's actually quite common.
Equally, another woman was having trouble with her eye. And they found in the end that there was bone in her eye because of the mutation or the meandering of various cells around the body. So a mole sprouting little tiny penises isn't some sort of pipe dream.
Well, of course you hear endoscopy, and this is actually, again, reasonably common, that you'll have a cyst and inside you'll find teeth and hair. And then if you look more closely, and often people don't because they find it a little bit repulsive, but if you burrow in, you'll find that there's actually a little person in there, a tiny little sort of troll-like creature who may even have learnt to speak, may be fully functioning, may have a reproductive system like you or I, but have always lived within this little sort of kinder egg. Kindercyst, as they're technically known.
What would you do with that person? I mean, legally, ethically, should you, adopt them, take them to social services, take them to A&E? I mean, what's...
It's a tricky one. I mean, I have a dear friend who had a kindercyst, and a little tiny troll came out of it. She made the decision actually not to inform the authorities. I can't reveal her name, but she still has this tiny child person, this kindercyst creature. Her daughter had a doll's house. He lives pretty happily in there now. They can't let him out. It's dangerous for him. They've got a dog. But it's usually people will just pop them in the bin.
Which seems very sad.
Down the waste disposal unit,
yes.
or in a hospital, they'll just pop them into the incinerator.
But frequently they still find a way to live, don't they, down in the sewers or wherever?
There's colonies of these little kindercyst folk, and sometimes people try and sell them on the black market, which is tragic because it's essentially slave. It's human trafficking or kindercyst trafficking. But actually, incidentally, the twin sister within the lung is very common.
Yes.
And most of us actually will be carrying a twin brother or sister within one or two of our organs and never know.
No, in fact, that I know there's been recent studies that show, low back pain is one of the most common things, isn't it, across the world, keeping people off work.
Yeah.
And frequently it is because of these rogue siblings that are essentially burrowed down into your spinal column or locked into your liver.
Or your bowel.
Bulging in your bowel and struggling about. Because these are often tiny humans, as you say, that should be living full and thriving lives.
Indeed. It's tragic.
Yes.
Really, essentially.
Dear Joan and Jericha, I've just met a man I really like and I want to seduce him with a sexy dinner. What should I cook? Miriam Burley from Shropshire. They like meat.
They like meat. They like red meat. They like offal. They like sausage. They like black pudding. They like liver.
Anything dark and dirty and stinky as a meat is what men like.
That's it. Heart. Tongue.
Brain.
And
then you're getting into, often we talk about these offal meats that are rarer, but we've discussed this with conditions as well. Ileum, cecum, pancreas.
Absolutely, right to the edge of the rectum and actually including the rectum itself, which are, we've discovered, extremely tasty, very, very tender if cooked in the right way, melt in the mouth at times, that people are sort of a little bit squeamish about.
And of course, being more traditional, if you're wanting to seduce a guy, anything puddingy with either stodgy puds, but also creamy puds.
Creamy puds, absolutely creamy puds, 100% winners. Anything sloppy and creamy and mushy and moist is going to get a guy going.
Because basically you're reminding the man of what he's after, which is a moist vagina.
Yes.
And his own experience of creating his own moist.
That's it. Absolutely, his own moisture. I mean, he's going to be thinking throughout the meal about the sex act. There's no getting away from that. So you may as well build on that. The minute So the minute your doorbell rings, he's got a semi-engorged organ that's throughout the evening going to rise and diminish, depending on topics of conversation, which you can to a certain extent steer. But your aim really is to get that penis fully ready for action by the time you've finished your dessert or coffee or whatever. So yes, you're right, the dessert is all about being moist. But a word of warning, because what a guy doesn't want is an over-moist vagina. That's going to mean that he's slopping in and out. It's a bit like sloppy seconds. Some guys love that, incidentally, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're overly moist, it can mean that the pleasure for him is reduced. One option is to start off in the vagina. If it's a bit too creamy, he can pop round the back and have a dry session there, unless you've got a sort of IBS condition, in which case that's going to be a further coating, which isn't going to help matters. And then you may need to resort to something else, a bit of oral, or as we say, this urethratic.
Should she clean her teeth before oral if she's had lots of stew and so forth?
Ask him. Ask him. Let him take the lead on that. He may well not want to have his. He may well enjoy the idea of
a dirty stewy mouth.
Absolutely.
Because there is, of course, that fashion now as well, isn't there? Obviously, the lesbians are really the ones heralding this, where they're quite happy to even perform cunnilingus during the very meatiest day of a woman's period. But guys as well also will have intercourse with a woman during that time. Whereas in other countries and cultures, a woman will be banished to a hut.
Yes.
And kept away from...
Shut away.
Because she's unclean,
Dirty.
she stinks, and her body is not in a state...
No.
And we know medically it's not. It's in a state of expelling the contents of the womb. The disappointed womb, as my mother used to call
crying and bleeding womb. If the guy wants to do it, that's his call. And we won't... And I wouldn't judge him, unless it's something that turns your man on. For goodness sake, don't push it down his throat. You know, he's got enough problems.
I know
in the
David
world.
Bellamy was big on that.
Oh, David Bellamy. I mean, David had all sorts of, funny habits and clicks and ticks. That's a
Paul Daniels.
Paul Daniels being another one. But I think that the point is these are exceptional men. And if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do.
Dear Joan and Jericha, I'm a widow. I wrote to you a while ago about the frisson I had with my godson when I saw him in the shower on a boating trip to Norfolk Broads, and my moral tussle about pursuing it, as his mother is a dear friend who'd invited me on the holiday.
I remember this.
Yes.
The lad in the shower.
Yes, we had several photos.
That's right.
At your advice, I have been meeting him for illicit sex behind bins in the back of cars on a disused train, which seems to work well for both of us. But I'm beginning to feel like his dirty secret and would enjoy intercourse in more comfortable surroundings, such as his bed on campus, or even a hotel, though I realise I'd have to pay, as I do generally anyway. Do you see a future for us?
So, firstly, what rings bells of alarm for me is she's saying I pay anyway, and yet, as far as I can gather, these places she's identifying on a train...
A disused train.
Behind a bin in the back of a car. That's ringing alarm.
I think the bin's outside the car. I think that's a different... She's not brought a bin into the car.
No. Well, you wouldn't really.
Unless that's one of their things.
Well, it could be, but one wouldn't want to pry into that. I think what's ringing some alarm bells for me here is she paying him for sex? Because that seems to be the implication.
Gosh, I didn't realise that. I felt she was implying that perhaps they then go off to Zizzi or Carluccio's for a carbonara or something. And
well, that's not clear, is it?
No.
I realised I'd have to pay, as I do generally anyway.
Oh, gosh. I knew at first, when we first heard about this gorgeous guy, and we've seen extensive photos, she sent more now, and she's made a lovely album. I love these ones where they're printed like an actual book.
It's wonderful, isn't it? Yes, I mean, I did like the one that she had set to music that scrolled through on the computer. That was rather lovely. But this is a whole new level of enjoyment, really.
And he's stunning, and he's athletic.
Oh, he's an exceptionally attractive man.
Obviously good at drama as well. She's got him there in the lead role of Grease.
Yes.
He's obviously a
lead role of
Grease.
The musical.
Yes. playing the John Travolta role.
Oh, yes.
But obviously not a homosexual, as we know John is.
No, but the role isn't homosexual, is it?
No.
No.
So it's tricky because I can see the attraction. This guy is.
Well, I mean, he's a very,
fabulous.
very attractive guy, as we've said, and she doesn't explain whether they keep clothes on or whether there's a sort of disrobing. I'm imagining perhaps that he would take a bit more off than her.
I think he'd probably prefer to have his top off.
Yes.
Perhaps he just unzips his fly
It could be, and drops the trousers just down to the knee.
to expose it. I mean, those quite incredible
Yes.
buttocks.
Absolutely, the
Which
gluteus
always seem to be
maximus.
tanned. And,
And taut, very taut. And the line, you can see in this photo, the sort of line of muscle running down the bunsa major, as it's called, from the top of the buttock right down to the back of the knee, which is very taut, and in him particularly developed.
Not so taut on her.
No, absolutely not on her, and luckily you just get the edge of her thigh on that photo.
But you can see a sort of cascading of cellulite
Yes,
from bottom to knee.
Yes, I mean, this is a very lucky lady. Let's first of all make that very clear. She's enjoying something that very few of us get to access. You know, this is a particularly fine young man that she's hooked up with here.
Being squired by.
Indeed,
Yes.
squiring. Do we see a future? Well, that's a good question.
Well, if she is paying him for sex, then yes, it's a considerably long future, I would imagine, because she could up and up and up her fee towards him and, give him a lovely life.
Indeed, and perhaps buy him a flat, and she does. I mean, he lives on campus.
Their sex pad.
Yes, exactly. She could perhaps furnish it with things that she liked and keep him there. But
what the alarm bells for me are. These are very sordid venues.
Yes, I mean, they're fun.
And there's something very metaphorical about having sex by a rubbish bin or, all these dirty places. It's as if he's saying, you're just dirty old rubbish.
I see, yes. And she says that, doesn't she? Dirty secret.
Because she's having sex in such disgusting places. Round bins,
absolutely.
there's rotten
There's
food,
rats.
there's rats and moths and mice and vermin and goodness knows what. Probably present
Absolutely.
during.
I think what a lot of people don't realise is that spermatozoa go onto the ground around the bins. The rats will roll in gobble it up, and then the next person that comes along and has sex around those bins. And I imagine if it's a campus university bins, there'll be an awful lot of people. It'll be a non-stop queue of traffic through there, and the rats' tails will be whipping that up, and you may well find splashback up into the vagina, even find its way up the end of a penis, or even an anal canal if people are crouching low down. So there's all sorts of issues that you've got to really look out for here.
So, thank you as always.
Yes, thank you for being so frank. We do value that.
We really do, and we're very, very much looking forward week upon week to every other kind of problem or challenge that you face. You yourself, Jericha, have been through a lot with your daughter Cardinal.
Yes, indeed.
The problem she's posed really, honestly, since conception.
Indeed. Yes, from the very moment that we knew somebody was on the way, and things started to go wrong, varying degrees. I was violently ill and had the Kate Middleton experience, which was going into hospital and losing an enormous amount of weight, from which I've never really recovered.
No.
And yeah, as you say, once she was born, that was a very difficult birth, and then things were
Your
downhill.
labour was how many days?
14 days, which normally they wouldn't allow, but they could see I was very strong. I've done a lot of, anyone who knows me will know that I'm constantly training for this and that and the other, and badminton team and what have you. So because I was physically very fit, and they allowed me to go, normally they wouldn't allow you to do a 14-day labour. It's dangerous for the baby, but
Yes.
in a way it was a battle between me and her, and I didn't bond with her for, I think, the first 4 years. So it's been a difficult time, but now we're pretty good friends, I'm glad to say. And actually she's going off to do a dry stone walling course this weekend.
Really?
Yes, bless her.
Cardinal,
Yeah.
that's lovely. And is it she just learns it in a couple of days? Or?
Yes, I mean, I think you can pick up the basics in a couple of days. But my understanding of it is really just sorting out stones and putting them together.
Let's be honest.
I think it is.
It's
isn't
just
it?
piling up a bunch of different shapes and sizes
Yes,
of stone.
and making sure there aren't too many gaps.
Would you stick it together with chewing gum, or?
Well, that's what I wonder, rather. I mean, I imagine there must be some glue. They're not going to stay up on their own, are they?
No, but you get the feeling out in the wilds that you're not really meant to be using sweets or super glue. You're probably trying to fashion some kind of cement from a leafy mashup or something.
I imagine so, something natural.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes these eco warriors are often people who can't deal with life.
No, that's right, and haven't got anything better to do.
No. Often they don't wash and they have sort of mini dreadlocks.
That's right. They have all sorts of hair problems and facial issues.
I think allowing hair across the board seems to be the modus operandi for these types.
Sort of go-to, and the monobrow being absolutely accepted, and hairy toes, and goodness knows what. Not hygienic, incidentally.
No.
But anyway, that's where Cardinal will be.
Well, let's hope she gets something out of it.
I hope
because
she
I know
does.
she's always trying one course or another.
Yeah, it's a sort of lifetime of courses, really. She's never really settled at anything, but perhaps this will be the one.
Yes.
Dry stone
Let's hope
walling.
so.
Watch out, Yorkshire.
Yes.